weeks, I've just been putting things together in regards to my own life and my school and academy. So the topic I want to talk about today is authority, right? Authority, credentialing, that sort of thing. It came to my awareness last night from somebody that another school nearby is questioning my credentialing, my education, my my authority, I guess. That's okay. I mean, let them. It's just gonna make them look bad. But that's kind of the challenge here with martial arts, right? Ultimately, there's little authority, right? Each discipline has somewhat of a hierarchy, a family lineage, and that's all well and good. Once you know something about the martial art, then you start to say, okay, well, where does this all come from? Who's the originator of this or that? Like, for example, my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu lineage is Michael Chapman is my professor who gave me my black belt, and his professor is Chris Howder, who is then under Machado, and I think then it goes under Carlos Gracie. But I've also learned my Muay Thai and my Judo that was under Scott McQuarrie, and then Obukan Judo is where he's from, and I've trained there and that sort of thing. And then boxing, Hooley Scott was my original boxing coach, then eventually transferred into Clayton Hires and Jamie Huey. So I could tell some dude off the street who I've trained under, oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm wearing a little bit nicer shirt than usual. So I can tell people, handsome geek, yeah, fair enough. I can take it off, that worked better, but then I can't see what you're writing. So I can tell any consumer off the street that wants to learn about the martial arts, right? And ultimately, at the end of the day, if you've never done anything, thank you, blue is my favorite color. And that's why my mats are all mostly blue. But if you've never done a certain martial arts, if you don't know a lot about it, maybe you know the name of it, right? You've seen some of it on TV. How do you really know if you're getting good instruction, right? You don't, right? My day's good, guys. You don't. Like, I have tons of medals, you can see, right? I've got trophies. Those are all mine. Those are not my students, okay? I've accomplished all of those. I also have my degrees, who belted me. I have a BS from Lewis Clark State College in Lewiston, and then a Master's of Science in Human Services from Capella University in Minnesota, and then I have a PhD from Kansas, or the University of Kansas in Edwards. So at the end of the day, here's the deal, right? You can go anywhere. There's no city ordinance. There's no governing ordinance. There's no state ordinance. There's nobody overseeing. Like, I was able to just come into this town and open a school. I could offer up really crappy sub-level martial arts, and most people wouldn't know anything. Let's say I was a mid-level martial artist. I was kind of good, but not necessarily great. I wasn't necessarily a great teacher or anything like that. You wouldn't know. You wouldn't necessarily know. So at the end of the day, the goal is the consumer has to educate themselves. You have to come in, you have to ask the right questions. Well, who are you under? And then go back and do your research. Most schools will let you try the place out. While you're trying it out, and you might not be able to gauge the art that you're being taught, but what you can do is get online. Where'd they come from? What experience do they have? You know, I can do something a lot, right? I can have a lot of experience teaching something mid-level, low-level, right? Nobody's gonna know because maybe nobody comes in. We don't dojo storm anymore. Nobody's walking into my school testing, was this guy any good, right? Now, Pacific Northwest, I carry a fairly decent name. I mean, you know, and I come from the School of Impact Jiu-Jitsu, so a lot of people know that. I've trained at Team Quest. A lot of people know that. So I, you know, generally in the Portland metro area, people know me. They know who I am. But lately, I had a dude come into town who not a lot of people know. In fact, dropped some names on some people, and I checked on those people because they happen to be friends of mine. I said, hey, this dude's dropping your name, trying to get a coaching job from me. And they didn't have anything positive to say about the guy. So I just said, nah, you know, just can't do it, but you can join and be a member. He did it for 2 months, skipped out on his dues, and I didn't see him for a good year. I not directly, but I heard he'd been training somewhere else in coaching, and then later came back into town and opened up his own school. And of course, you know, he's got a handful of students now. None of them are my former, well, one might be, but not really any of my former students. And the one I think he has is short. He's barely here. But ultimately, the word is that he's trying to discount all of my credentialing, and you know, the word was that I think I'm the best in the world. I'm certainly not that. I'll leave that to Gordon Ryan, Andre Gaval, and you know, plenty of other guys to be named after that. I'm one of the most successful, most accomplished martial artists on this mountain or within the Portland metro area. There are plenty of great martial artists and coaches in the area. But to sit there and try to say, I don't, that's kind of an issue, but that's being dealt with. But the reason I wanted to talk about it was the consumer has to be aware. You guys, students, you're going out to train, you're looking to sign up with somebody, you need to know what you're asking about, right? And you don't necessarily have to be good at the martial art or know the martial art per se, but check their lineage. Get on Reddit, get on some message boards, and I think it's Quora has one too for martial arts. You can get on there and say, hey, I'm looking to train, or get on Facebook and just say, hey, I'm looking to train Kempo, Taekwondo, Jiu-Jitsu, Tai Chi, whatever. What are your recommendations, right? Because I've done that. I've posted, but I've also posted ads, or you know, on Facebook. You know, I've done the social media marketing. In fact, I just had a bit of I did a social a marketing thing, and it turned out to be fraud. Kind of got suckered on that one. Lost a little bit of money. But you get target marketing, right? People know of martial arts. I get people in here that want to do jiu-jitsu, and they think it's some sort of ground karate. So they, you know, just not well educated on the matter. And so I have even had people come in and train for a few months and then want to suggest how things should go. But I've been doing this for 30 years. I've owned my own school and run it for 6 years, but I've been in the martial arts game for 30 years. I've seen plenty of schools close down. I see plenty that have stayed open, and there are certain things you must do, and even though it would be nice to do things another way, you kind of have to follow that. But end of the day, it's a blessing and a curse, right? There is no governing bodies And other than, you might get some litigation if you take somebody's patch. Like, if I, you know, got Machado's patch, even though I, fall down within that tree, I'm sure he's not gonna just be okay with me wearing his patch and promoting myself as a Machado school unless I'm paying him some dues for that, right? And so that's kind of the issue, right? And then so you can also take that into consideration too when you're considering a school. Sometimes, schools will be patched under other schools, but that doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot, right? Some professors, some masters are they got their hands in on that program, right? They're monitoring, they're quality controlling it, right? It's like you can go to we've heard the McDojo, right? But there's something there that's good, right? You can go to McDonald's, and you're gonna get the same Big Mac as you'd get across the country, around the world, right? If you open up another dojo or academy or gym under another person's name, people can't always you're not guaranteed that you're going to get the exact same quality of training, because sometimes it does get watered down and diluted, right? So that's part of it, but sometimes it doesn't, right? Because I have a different background than my professor, so he was very jiu-jitsu specific. When I opened my school, it was very jiu-jitsu was the focal point, but I added wrestling, judo, boxing was one of my first loves and first goes in the combat world. So I have a heavy influence of those things in there. And we do a lot of takedowns, right? There's a lot of schools that don't work on takedowns, or if they do, it's very selective and infrequent. We do it pretty regular, pretty often. But I also have I've put in money into my mats, right? We got 4 inches of crash and cushion. So, because, it hurts to fall and hit the ground. It hurts getting hit with the earth. So what do you got to do when you're a consumer? You got to do your research. What's wonderful nowadays, in the 80s you couldn't do this, in the 90s you couldn't do this very well, but now you can. You can get online, you can go to Facebook, Instagram, any social media, usually Google it and check. Don't check reviews. Don't check online reviews, because I've watched those. And most of those are brand new students, newbies, low experience people just saying, hey, I like the guy. He was nice. It seems great. But they're not. You want to talk to martial artists who are reviewing on martial arts. Maybe that's what we need. We need a review board. So if anybody cashes in on this idea, start a review board of places to train that's critiqued by other martial artists, right? That might be a little bit more up the alley, but I think Reddit or Quora, might have something, or just maybe I know I've had students move away and they've asked, hey, I'm in this town, who do you recommend? And I've been doing it long enough. If it's a bigger town, I generally know somebody or something, a school, I've heard of something, or I know somebody to ask. But I can also review. I had a buddy who lives over in Tennessee. He wants to get his boy into it. He sent me this is the school we're thinking of, and I looked it over, and I was like, it seemed very, jack of all, master of none kind of school. And I said, what does he want to do? He really wants to be an MMA fighter. And the guy who was the runner of the school doesn't have any credentials as an MMA fighter, real experience, and he couldn't even find any credentialing that he's coached anybody as an MMA fighter. So I was like, my recommendation, he's a teenager, get him in the wrestling program, get him a good solid foundation, and then maybe find a boxing class. Find somewhere that's a good boxing program. Find a boxing club. That would give them a good start. So you can do those things, right? So guys, this isn't like buying a candy bar where you can just buy it and taste. I liked it, didn't. You can find a martial arts school, and they're nice, right? It has a good energy, can be all that, but the instruction might not be to the level you're looking for, right? You might, you know, and it depends, right? If you're just looking for a place to get a good workout and kind of fun and, you know, maybe defend yourself, most places are going to probably be okay. I mean, even the other place in town that I'm referring to, I'm sure, you know, they're going to teach you better than an untrained fighter, okay? But he doesn't have any credentials. He's not, you know, got any medals. He's not won any major tournaments. He's not fought professionally, yet he's training. In fact, he was at a local fight show where I had a guy at the fight show. His guy was a main event or co-main event, and the ref TKO'd his guy because he was running away, not fighting, and his guy got upset, stormed out, didn't shake hands, didn't wait for the final announcement, and that guy did it with him. I'm not okay with that. That's not honorable, and the only reason I'm saying and talking trash a little bit about it is because where it is he's doing it to me. So maybe this will get to him. Maybe he'll be wise. I don't know. But at the end of the day, guys, you got buyer beware, man. Buyer beware, right? There's little leagues here, and then there's major leagues, right? I'm no John Danaher, you know. I am not, you know, Randy Couture or Matt Lindland or any of the bigger, well-known guys that are you know, coaching and running schools, you know. But I have over 50 combat fights, guys. I have, you know, hundreds of jiu-jitsu tournaments. I have 8 gold IBJJF medals from PANS, the Seattle Open. I've got 3rd place at Masters World. I've won several times at Adult Worlds, though I was pushing 40. You know, I've got a couple amateur title belts, right? I won a state title twice in Idaho. So I have credentials, right? I have credentials. I don't necessarily like being the face. Sometimes I've tried to step away and not necessarily, I don't want to feed my ego, but you gotta know where you're training. You gotta know who you're training under, and are they battle tested? Do they even know, right? And I'm not saying the best athletes rarely become the best coaches, right? But there's got to be a balance, right? There's got to be an equilibrium of, you know, be wary of unearned wisdom. So if you're training under somebody, who did they train under, right? What do they know? How do they know? And that's hard. Sometimes in this traditional martial arts, a lot of times you can't question your guy. But if you do it the right way, I think you can. Right? If you go master, sensei, shifu, professor, can you tell me about your lineage, right? A lot of them they love to talk about it. They're proud of who they got belted under. Okay, what combat experience do you have? You know, have you ever had to use this stuff in real life? You know, I mean, you can get on YouTube. I have a handful of fights on YouTube. You can get on you know, Reddit or you know, Facebook, and you can do some investigating a little bit. But martial arts is getting expensive, right? The economy's not doing all that hot, and if you're doling out north of $100 for martial arts services, which is probably pretty standard, why wouldn't you investigate? I mean, that's north of $1,200 a year. That's significant. Right? Invest it wisely, my friends. Invest it wisely. Make sure you're training under someone who's qualified, credentialed, and experienced. and ultimately, and then, you know, you're going to get a lot more for your money. If you're just looking for a good place to get a workout and you don't really care, okay, you'll probably be fine. Don't do the research. Don't do the investigation on it. But if you're truly wanting to be good and get good at something, value it, honor it by doing a little sleuthing, right? Talk to the school owner, the head coach. What do they know? How do they know, right? If they feel offended by answering that, run, leave. That's not the place to go. They should be happy to share and be proud, right? But don't take their word for it either. Look them up, investigate, right? Go on social media, go on the websites, go on Google. I mean, there are places that you can go to validate what they've said. And if you can't, man, it's a little tough. The only time you're going to get a little sketch, and I might be wrong here, but is let's say you go into a dojo and the head guy is north of, he's in his 60s, 70s. You might not find a lot of documentation. That might be tough, right? But anybody in their 50s, 40s, 30s, they got to have records. There's got to be a trail of who they are, what have they done, that sort of thing, right? I have, you know, I think the guy that was trying to discredit me questioned my degrees. Well, I got classmates that know where I graduated, were in attendance of my graduations from college. I have, I believe I have all my transcripts, you know. But it's just silly, right? At the end of the day, we shouldn't be talking trash against anybody else, because anybody good, right? The professors, the higher advanced students are not talking trash about the lower guys. They're lifting them up. It's the lower guys that are talking trash about the upper guys, right? So that's my sayings today. I appreciate you guys watching, and I will try to do this a little bit more. What I'm looking for, I appreciate all of the recognitions that, you know, blue looks good on me, you like my glasses, and saying hi, I'm having a wonderful day, it's raining, I was supposed to go help a buddy paint, and that got canceled. But I appreciate you guys watching, and come with questions. You know, again, I'm gonna try this Wednesday at noon every week, unless my schedule changes. But answer questions. I think you can put comments on these right afterwards. But I try to keep them south of 30 minutes. Well, let's talk about, I'm a big fan of martial arts and spirituality, right? Philosophy, right? And I love talking about how martial arts can help us in our real life. I can take a technique, how to maximize the potential of that technique, and then apply that philosophy of that technique to life. The biggest one right now I'm thinking is slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? Another way to say that would be speed and power will never build you good technique, but good technique will build you speed and power. Too many times I see in practice people rushing. The same thing goes when you're trying to join it. You rush into it, you don't do your research. Relax, guys. Breathe. Let it in, let it out. Think about it, right? Does it resonate with you? Did you do your research? Slow down, right? I don't want anybody to come in here and don't show me how good and fast you are. Show me how humble and open you are to learn my way, right? And then, you know, because it's backed by success. And then if you've got inclinations and insights, let's have them, right? At some point, eventually, you know, I hope all my students either coach somewhere or start their own school. So I wanna be a good example for that, right? So that's my 2 cents. Much love for watching me, guys. I appreciate it. And, you know, let's keep training. Stay on the mats any way you can. Sometimes it's pull up a chair and you watch. Sometimes it's just flow and bow out when you got to spar. you know, just do what you can, man. That's all we got to do, right? So, peace, love.